All right, welcome to another Men Ignited podcast. I'm here. My name is Pete O'Neill, and I'm here with a special guest today, John. John, how are you doing today, brother?
What's up, man? Good to be here. I'm doing good. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing really good. I'm really excited for, today's conversation, really. And we're gonna talk about a big, huge theme that's, on everybody's mind right now. That's biblical masculinity. And a lot of guys think that a lot of Christian men are weak or Christianity is weak, and we want to talk about these topics. We also want to talk about, certain things from our own personal life. So how we're going to start it off is we're going to start first with just how we found God, how we got into Christianity. So I'm curious to know, for you, John, like how did you get into Christianity?
Yeah, dude, that's a good question. And I think this is an awesome topic to be talking about.
Yeah.
For me, it was honestly, it was kind of like raised up through it from a young age, right? So, as a kid, I went to church with my parents. We would go like every Sunday, do the typical like Bibles, kids like Sunday school, learn about like the basic stories of the Bible and all that. Then my parents got divorced. We weren't going to church for a little while, and then my mom kind of started taking us back to church. And that's when I think for the first time, like did the altar call, like raise my hand, accept Jesus into your life thing. And honestly, since then, it's kind of been like an ongoing, like there's been moments where I was like more involved in Christianity or however you want to say, like walking closer to God. And then there's been moments where I wasn't. But um, from there in high school, I went to Young Life. I don't know. Do you know what Young Life is?
It's like a young group, kind of like a young adult group, something like CCD or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a Christian organization that's like kind of primarily focused towards high schoolers. And
Okay.
so they basically what they do is like once a week they get the high schoolers to come together on like a Tuesday afternoon and they basically just play games. It's time to like hang out with your friends and then there's a very small talk about the Bible at the end. And then that leads up to like this big year-end thing where they'll take you to like a summer camp and you'll kind of like learn it's more intensive there where you learn more about the Bible and then there's usually like an altar call at the end of the week. And so I did that and that's kind of like where I met one of my really good friends, Adrian. And then in high school, we started going to this church that was like kind of booming at the time in Seattle.
Hmm.
And that led me to like really start to read the Bible a little bit more. But it also was kind of at a church that I won't say the name, but it was like kind of a little bit more of a toxic church. It was like almost like a Bible thumping. There was a lot of like fear and a lot less grace preached. Or at least that's how I interpreted it as a high schooler, and a lot of other people have interpreted it that way. Um, and so I kind of like went into this legalistic Christianity where I was like doing everything because I felt like I had to save myself, and be a good Christian. Otherwise, I wasn't saved, which isn't really what the Bible teaches. Um, so after doing that for like maybe 4 or 5 years, or actually, yeah, like probably about 4 or 5 years, I kind of just got burnt out. I was lonely. I had like gone into this legalistic path where I was like, I felt like I couldn't do anything fun. And so I kind of like secluded myself from friends and I kind of took a hit socially.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
so that was like about 21. I came back from my first year of college and I was just like, I'm just done, dude. So I started partying and didn't really do a whole lot other than just like have fun in my 20s. And then towards the end of my 20s, um, things sort of changed a little bit. That's kind of when I started pursuing like finishing school and then I got into like okay, I need to learn how to date. But it still wasn't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
Christian based. This is where I got into like by the time I was 30, I was getting into like cold approach and learning how to
Yeah.
socialize,
Yeah.
but there was still no
Yeah.
God content in there. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. 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 I hear you.
and so
Yeah.
now, I'm going to be 37 this Friday and it's like I've learned a lot from that. I've seen the toxic side of it. I still feel this pull to come back to God, and I still, like me and you, have had a lot of conversations about
Yeah.
Christianity. But to be honest, like I still struggle with a lot of it. There's a lot of things that I feel like are um, kind of hard to understand in the Bible and a little contradictory. And we can get into that later. But that's
Yeah.
basically like my overall path. It's been this like, coming and leaving and coming and going. Um, but here we are. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like, what about you? Like, how's your origin story for Christianity?
Yeah, yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I appreciate you sharing your story with us and, like
Yeah.
getting vulnerable. And I do want to really know kind of like some of the stuff that, kind of affected you. You're saying like the dating, the red pill, these type of things, like how it kind of affected you. Because I had some similar experiences too. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about how I found God.
Yeah.
And I get really excited to talk about this because for me, I was raised Catholic. My whole family was Catholic, and we just kind of did like the whole systematic approach of
Hmm.
just like go to church, go to Sunday, you got to listen to the preacher, the pastor, and like it's kind of like super boring. You're a kid, you don't want to be there. I didn't really want to be there. My mom would always have to force me to go to church. Like on Sunday, I wanted to go play with like friends or go outside. And I would go and I'm just like, oh, whatever, and I didn't really like pay attention to it. Maybe I just wasn't, it didn't hit me, right? But I would go to church. I just knew that there was a God just the whole time, that's how you're brought up. But no one really talked to me about really what the heck is going on. Like like how God is, like the stories. Like I've heard stories, some of the fun stories and stuff, but never truly like how I'm looking at it now. And, my parents never really, sat me down and talked to me and they're like, hey, this is what happened, this is why Jesus died, da da da. And yeah, I was like, okay, I got the gist of it. I got the cliff notes. I do believe, but it was never to the point where I went and tried to like really look at it for myself. It was just through other people saying you should do that. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, fine, I'll do that,
Yeah.
right? And I do think that a lot of people go with this approach
Hmm.
where they don't really question it, they don't really try to seek it, and they just kind of just going along with like just like kind of like the zombie thing, like you're just going Sunday, going in, going out, going in, going out, right? But
Yeah.
no one's really trying to like dig deeper, right? So that's kind of where that was my like you know, like early childhood and then high school, same thing. And, I prayed and stuff. And I did believe, but it just wasn't, it didn't hit me, right? Until like years later. Cause then I went through like a big thing was when I broke my leg, like 2016, I tore my ACL, my meniscus, and I was really sad. And I was just like, this is where I was doing like jujitsu, like full time. And I got hurt, man, and the doctor said I was going to be out for a year, and I was just like super angry, and I was like angry with God. I was like, God, why did you do this? Like I thought, like this is all that I love, and like why are you doing this? Why are you punishing me?
Hmm.
Like I was really upset. So I kind of walked away, not in a way where like I don't believe, but just kind of like I'm gonna go my own path, kind of.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I got into like visualization, I got into law of attraction, I got into like all of this like mystic stuff of like believe it and you can see it. You know what I mean? All these things like Neville Goddard, all of these people that are talking about uh like law of attraction type of thing. Like
Yeah.
if you see it in your head, like you can get anything you want. So I started believing that, and that's kind of where I walked away a little bit and got
Hmm.
into kind of like more of the, as a young guy, you want to meet women, right? I do think for as a any man, right? Like you're a guy that's like a straight dude that has testosterone, right? You want to meet women, right? So I had some
100%.
challenges along the way. I had
Yeah.
challenges along the way, but I wanted to get better because I knew I had some challenges. I struggled, and I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna figure this out. So I started kind of picking up some books, those books led me to communities where guys would, work on this, get better at this, kind of like the whole like pickup stuff, like cold approach, social
Hmm.
skills, all that stuff. And I saw that there was a path to improving, right? It's like
Hmm.
just like a self-improvement path. But, just like anything, there's always good and bad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I started to go into that route. And, that path led me to, improve on myself as a man. And then that's how I ended up finding my wife, just the skills along the way. I just ended up meeting her. But then once I got married, and then I started thinking about the future. I started thinking about like death. I started thinking about real life things in my life. I
Because
was
that's
I
like
was
the next step, right? Like you're married
yeah,
now, so like
yeah.
then you start thinking about, okay, what happens next in life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what happens next? And I got what I wanted, right? Now
Yeah.
it's like us humans, I think it's like once we get something, we like it's amazing. And I just want to say it's an amazing thing that I have with my wife. Like I love her
Mhm.
so much. I really thank God. But I do think that once that you get things in life, you always, I think as humans, we just always like, okay, what's next or something
Yeah.
like that, right? So we ended up having a baby, and she got pregnant. I really started thinking about life, and I'm like, man, I need to get closer to God. Like, the world is crazy, And when we found out it was a girl, I was like, man, like, because I thought it was gonna be like a boy, like my first kid. I want to have multiple kids, and
You thought it
I
was going to
got
be a boy
scared.
that you were going to be putting in like headlocks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, like training the kid,
Yeah.
all this, but I got scared that, like I looked at it from a little baby girl's perspective, and I'm like, wow, like I'm having a baby girl that's coming into the world. And then I started looking at the world, and I started looking at how evil the world was,
Hmm.
how corrupted it was, how so many, girls that don't have a good father get destroyed, and how the world can, destroy them and stuff like that. So I started like really thinking deep, and that's where I was like, all right, I'm gonna, like, I want to talk to God. I really want to know if he exists, right? And so I started praying. That's one thing I did is I just started praying to God, and I was like, God, like, if you exist, show me. Like, please. I was just like, please, Lord, like, I don't know if you exist or not. I do think that you do. Please show me. Show me the way. Show me something that you exist. Show me in a dream. Show me in anything in like in an interaction, anything. Show me,
Hmm.
and I will follow you. And I started praying, and here's the thing. It wasn't just one prayer and then that happened, right?
Yeah.
I kept asking for that, right? I
Hmm.
kept I kept asking for God to reveal himself to me. So it was crazy because one day, right? One night I was praying, and I was praying, and I was like, God, please, like, just show me that you exist somehow, please, Lord, like, please, Lord God, like, I want you to know, like, I'm here, just
Hmm.
show me that you're here. And then I went the next day, I went to 24-hour fitness.
Hmm.
Right? I think I told you this story.
I think so, but you got to remind me because it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. I went to 24-hour fitness, dude. And I went there with one of my friends. His name is Ate, a guy from Finland. And we went and worked out just like any other day. And then after we worked out, we hit the pool, and we did like a little race. We're like, hey, man, I'll race you from here to here. Just after
I've
this.
done that, dude. I've done that.
Really? And I don't want to say anything, don't want to sound conceited, but I ended up winning. I actually smoked him. Just kidding. No,
Of
I used to
course.
swim back in the day though, so I had an advantage, right? I used to swim as a little kid,
Oh, there you go.
but I didn't tell him that. But yeah, after we raced or whatever, we were just having fun, and just in the pool, just messing around, and then we got into the jacuzzi, a nice jacuzzi. It's just me and him. It's like huge jacuzzi, and then this one old man comes in, and the old man comes in and like he's like, I don't know, like he looks like he's like a Middle Eastern guy. He looks like he's in his 60s.
Hmm.
And he's just like kind of looking, he's just like sitting down like right across from me, and he's just like kind of like looking at us and just like looking away, just kind of like that. I'm just like with my friend, and I'm just like looking at the dude, and I'm just like it's getting kind of awkward that we're like both kind of like he keeps looking, keep looking. So I'm gonna break the ice, work
Yeah.
on my social skills, right? So I
Yeah.
broke the ice. I'm like, hey, how you doing, man? How's it going? And he's like, and this was like right before Augie was born. So
It's like
Augie's
2023.
so Augie's 2 years old. She turned two October 2000. October 12th, I mean. So yeah, 20, is it 2023? Yeah, it must be 2023,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, and I see the dude and we're just talking back and forth. I don't remember the exact conversation, but I do remember the main things, right? So then he like literally straight up cut to the chase and he's like, "So, what do you believe in? Do you believe in God?" And I was like, "Yeah, I believe in God," kind of like what I'm telling you, like, yeah, like I know that God exists. And then he's like, "Well, what's your what's your religion?" And I'm like, "Oh, like I'm like Catholic, Christian, kind of like in the same kind of like just, Catholic, like, because it's in my opinion it's like the same thing, but there's a couple different factors. We can talk about that later, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, it's, Catholic, Christian, Jesus.
And this is before you knew more about those differences, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
way before, right? And he was just like, he's like, I'm like, what about you? And one thing too to take is my friend next to me, like the dude is an atheist. So he doesn't believe it. Nothing against the dude. He's a cool guy, but he doesn't believe in God. So he's just like kind of like listening to us, right? And he's just like, oh man, this guy's crazy. But for me, I'm like, I literally prayed right the day before, the night
Yeah.
before, and I'm like, yeah, what about you? And he's like, I'm Christian. I'm like, oh wow, really? I was expecting him to say I'm Muslim,
Muslim or something. Yeah, yeah.
something like that, right? Because he looked Middle Eastern. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I used to be a Muslim. And I'm like, really? And like to me, this was like 2 years ago. This is not now where like everything is like super like everyone's just like, the whole Charlie Kirk thing and kind of like the revival or there's a
Yeah.
lot of YouTube podcasts right now. This was like a little bit before, right?
Hmm.
And I was very curious because I know a lot of people that are Muslim. How it for someone to be a Muslim to convert to believing in Jesus Christ, that like to me, I'm like, whoa, right?
It's a
So to
big
me, I asked him
switch.
like, what? I'm like, how did you go from being a Muslim to being a Christian? Like what's your story behind that? And then he was like, yeah, like I'm from, and I forget what country in the Middle East he was from. He's like, we're from here. I've been a Muslim my whole life. And one day, I had a dream, and in that dream, I was asleep in my bed, and I open up like I'm asleep in my bed, and someone's knocking at the door. So I go outside the door, and I open up the door, and it's an angel, and I
Hmm.
could see Jesus, and he's saying, "Come follow me."
Hmm.
And he wakes up, and then as he wakes up, he goes and reads the Bible, and he quotes me, I believe this one here, Jeremiah 29:13, right?
Hmm.
But I don't know. I actually don't know which one he quoted. I don't want to that's actually I don't want to quote the exact one, but he quoted me one, dude. And then he said once that he looked at like, the Bible, he turned his whole life to Jesus, man.
Hmm.
And to me, that in itself right there, just literally, I was like, God, like, please, And then he started telling me that's the truth. He's like, my whole family didn't, was angry. They didn't, they kind of like were, I don't talk to a lot of them, but he was telling me his story. And that right there was just one of the many things that I saw when I would pray and, something would happen like that.
Wow.
You know, I have a lot of things. I don't want to get into that. Maybe we can have another conversation about all the things that I've noticed in my life, but that was a
Yeah.
big there, right?
Huh.
And then and then to me, I was like, damn, like this dude. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm just talking to God and I'm like, whoa. And then my friend's like, this dude's crazy. Like we all have like different perspectives.
Yeah, yeah.
This dude over here is like, hey, yo, this guy's nuts, right? This
Total,
guy's like
yeah.
telling me, he's like, you have Jesus in your heart. Like that's the most important thing, da da da. And then to me, I'm just like, whoa, like, and then I start to seek the Bible. And that's kind of where I get closer. And then I start, going into, I remember on YouTube or something, people started telling me that I should go to like John as like the first one, like the New
Hmm.
Testament, going into the gospel. The gospel is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And
Hmm.
then that's when I started really like paying attention, reading, digesting it, and seeing Jesus' life and what he taught and how he was. And then that's when it started opening everything up for me. And
Yeah.
then that's when I really started believing more. And then from there, I was like, damn, dude, I got to change my life, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's how it happened. And I'm going to have this verse here, right here, Jeremiah 29:13. It says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that. It's a continuing, like it's a continuous journey of like trying to seek him out. And that's kind of what my journey was. And then that's how I got to that. So and now I'm like reading so much more. I'm reading like the Old Testament. And I'm reading like the Old Testament now. I just finished reading Genesis to I'm now in Joshua. So I basically read the Torah because the Torah is the first 5 books,
Right.
right? And to me now, I'm curious about like, okay, I believe in God. I believe so much more, and I believe in like so many different things now, as far as like being so logical and like all the dots are connecting to everything. The Old Testament connects to the New Testament. It's crazy. We'll get into that later, but I also started thinking like, well, I truly believe, but hold on a sec. What about the Jews? What about the Muslim people? What do they
Hmm.
believe in? And that's kind of
Hmm.
where I started thinking about like researching what they believe.
Right.
And then it came back to okay, like for example, like the Jews is like, okay, well, they only read the Torah, they don't read the New Testament. And does the Old Testament actually have um like things about Jesus, like prophecies about Jesus? Yes or no? And the answer is yes, man. And then
Hmm.
the Muslim people, it's similar, but completely like different contradictions. But I'm like super like now I'm just like, wow, this is amazing stuff, you know what I mean, about God. And that's kind of where and kind of like you, man, there's sometimes where I do have a little doubt. I'm human. I think that's a
Yeah.
normal thing,
Yeah.
but that's kind of my story. I kind of went a little on a tangent, but
No, dude, it's cool. It's a
yeah.
cool story. I think a lot of like when you ask people why they believe, I think most of the time it's not because they're like, oh, well, the evidence is overwhelming. It's like they've usually had a personal experience that to them is concrete. Like that's like there's no telling them otherwise. It's like, no, I know what I experienced, and this is like this to me is proof. I mean, I remember reading a thing about this guy who was like an atheist, a really well-known scientist, and he was on a hike, and he's like in his sixth, I don't know, he was in an older age of life, and he's on a hike, and he like turns around, like he comes around
Oh.
this corner, and he sees this just stunning waterfall that was frozen because it was like winter, and he said like he just believed in God at that moment because it was like so like majestical and there was something about it that was just so like this is creation that he was like there's no way I can't believe in a God when I see something this beautiful, which is kind of interesting because if you look at that from a biblical standpoint, don't ask me like the verse specifically. We could look it up, but it says like people, everyone knows that there's a God just from the evidence of nature alone.
Mm.
Like there's an
Yeah.
actual verse in that on that. Um,
Yeah, you told me
so
that one. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's kind of interesting that he had that experience and it kind of lines up. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I think like those stories are important. Like your
Yeah.
story is important to hear. So it's cool.
Dude, I think like one of the things like if for any of the people that are listening, maybe they're like on the fence or maybe they don't believe. I think that they should really just ask God to show him or like, hey, continue to ask God for, hey, show me that you exist, show me, please. Like it's a tiny little thing or, talk to him, have a relationship with him. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to happen maybe one time, but maybe try to continue to do that. That's what I did. And I did it many times.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing that I mean, sometimes they might, I don't know. I do think that he's going to come. I mean, look at all the people that are converting into Christianity that are like in other countries, like in Pakistan or like in other, Muslim nations where, the majority is people who believe in Islam. They're having dreams about Jesus. They're having dreams about that. And then from there they're converting. So sometimes God will appear, sometimes you ask him, you continue to search. You got to continue to search. That's why in the Bible it says, like, seek and you will find, knock and the door will open, right? Ask and it shall be given. Like you continue that's not a one-time thing, right? It's a continuation, and then continue to look at the Bible in itself. But let's move into the next subject, brother. So
Yeah.
let's go into a big subject here where a lot of people perceive Christianity as like weak or like Christian men as weak. And there's this big thing on like, huge trend with like Andrew Tate and all these guys that are like these red pill guys, influencer dudes
Yeah.
that are like, you got to do this. So it's like toxic masculinity
Hmm.
and the good things, but also the things that are the ramifications of just following that only, and then the difference between actually what the Bible teaches about biblical masculinity. So, what's
Yeah.
your story on like a little bit on like the kind of like the red pill or certain things that they talk about that toxic masculinity type of like style?
Yeah. Dude, honestly, this is where it gets kind of like it gets a little hairy because it's like, man, in some ways those things work. Okay, so like I think
Yeah,
about like traditionally, okay, well, biblical masculinity, like what you see masculinity in the Bible, it's not real. Like I try to think, okay, who are the main man, like main men characters in the Bible? You got like
yeah,
Moses and David and Jonah and people like Gideon and obviously Jesus. And it's like they're if you look at them as an example of masculinity, it's like these guys weren't like, some body lifters, like power lifters, bodybuilders, like they were just like normal dudes. But I think the thing that made them masculine was like they continued to do what God asked them to do, even though they were like kind of struggling. Like David stumbled with Bathsheba and he totally went off the rails and like had sex with her and then and then like killed her husband and like did all this crazy stuff, right? And then like, Jonah didn't want to follow God and basically God's like,
yeah.
all right, fine. In the belly of the whale you go. And he's like, kind of correcting him, like get back on course. And then even, the stories about Gideon wanting a sign from God, like, is this really what you want me to do? Like make the grass wet. And then God makes the grass wet. He's like, okay, fine. Make just the mat outside my door wet, but let the grass be completely dry. And then he gets up and he like wrings the mat out, right? Okay, but he was like hesitating. He's like, I don't want to follow God. And then even Jesus at the very end, and in the garden, he's like the day before he gets crucified, he's like, God, if you can, please take this cup away from me. Like, I don't want to go through with this. But so I think like biblical masculinity in the Bible is like not necessarily these stoic dudes, but it's just like guys who were courageous during fear and just like kept going. But that's super hard to do. But then I think when you look at like the history of the church, specifically like the last like 3 to 4 decades, and you look at like the men in the church, like I don't know, dude. I've tried to become friends and join different groups of a lot of men in the church, and it's like these aren't guys that I really respect. You know, like I don't really see anything in their life that like I want to makes me want to be friends with them or follow them. In the past, that's how I've thought. So,
And what,
and then
hold on, right there. What do you mean by that? Respect and like you see
like
these guys and you don't see that,
like
just something that, yeah,
yeah, like I would go to church, and I would like
yeah,
try to, okay, I'm gonna try to like follow, like get someone who can maybe teach me a little bit, like an older guy. And then I meet these guys and like they're nerdy. They don't take care of their body physically. They don't have a wife that like I hear their story about how they met their wife. And like for I'll give you an example, okay?
uh,
One guy was like he's basically like, I met my wife. I asked her, like I told her like, I think I'm supposed to marry you, and she like immediately felt sick. And she took that as a sign, like, oh, this is a sign that I like this something's happening with the Holy Spirit. I'm like, I don't think that if I was like introducing myself to my wife and she felt sick, I would feel good about that, you know? I don't know if that guy will ever see this, but um but basically like and like I don't know, I think there is something to say about like just someone, like their accomplishments, and it was just kind of like I didn't see anyone that I would really want to like, do I want that, Like, do I want I mean, he had a family with like four or five kids, which is great. It's just
mm,
I just didn't feel like I could connect with them.
mm,
Um, and
mm,
so for me, it was like, man, I don't know. It's kind of hard to like want to get involved in this church when this is what like the examples of men are who are like further along than me.
mm,
Um, So I think like at that point, and then you also see like, even the single guys, like you go to church, you go to like the men's nights and you hear that all of them are still struggling with the same things that the world is, all of them are struggling with porn or whatever, or sexual sin.
yeah.
And none of them are
Us.
having success and none of them are dating women. And it's like, why would I join this, So
Mm,
like for me personally, that's sort of like where I told you, like after a while, I was just
mm,
like, I'm done trying this. And then
mm,
down the road, even a little bit further down the road after that, I had to get like so lonely to the point where I was like, okay, I got to like do something about this. And then that led to like learning how to cold approach women and, learning dating. And then you get into like the authorities on that, like on YouTube, the people who are like, leading those spaces. And yeah, you come across a lot of the red pill guys.
mm,
And
mm.
though, like, I think the reason that works is because a lot of the stuff they do or say to do does work to an extent, to an extent. But then it kind of swings the opposite way, where you can kind
Yeah.
of like start thinking in a bad way. Like, for example, I always remember like the time when I finally was like, okay, this is a little too much. Is like I remember following this one guy and he was basically saying like, if women aren't willing to come to you on a date, then like don't go to them, like make sure they come to your part of the town and like,
Oh, yeah.
hold your ground and all this.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I was trying that for a little bit and I was just losing out on second dates, dude. And I was like, this is dumb. Like this isn't, why does it matter
Yeah.
if I drive across town or if they come to me or
Uh,
like you're building a relationship and a lot of these guys are teaching like, no, you need to have a date close to your house or hers so that you can go and hook up afterwards, like on a first date. And it's like, I, I think that you just kind of realize, like a healthy relationship doesn't really start that way. But I think where it gets a little hairy is then you look at the people in the church and you see these guys like myself who was afraid to do anything as a Christian because I felt like, oh, if I if I accidentally hook up with a girl or, even get close to that line, there's the Bible says like don't have any impurity. And so it's like then you're kind of afraid to do anything. And
yeah.
then you're just sitting there like lonely with no success with women. So
Mm,
I think that it's I think like that red pill community has a draw in some ways because some of the stuff they teach is right. These are just like attraction traits and like things that women confess that they find attractive. Like even like a couple weeks ago, I was at my friend's house and her mom was like, talking about how she used to date someone from Hell's Angels. And she was like, "Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, he was just this bad boy, and I liked it." And I mean, you as a
Uh,
dating coach, like
uh,
that there's certain things that women do find attractive that it's kind of like you're towing the line a little bit on what, what the Bible says versus like what you've found works. Um,
mhm. Yeah.
so, like I just think that that's hard for people to know. And when I look at other like I look at pastors who, they tell their life story, like even like some really well-known pastors, they were like, yeah, honestly, I met my wife, we were having sex, I became a Christian, I realized I can't have sex with her. So we stopped until we got married, and then we started making up for lost time. Like that's that's like one of the pastors. And you look at like people who've done anything significant or grown in a relationship, and it's like a lot of Christians, they started out their relationship not in a Christian way. Or even guys who overcome like porn struggles or things like that. Like they overcame
Yeah.
it because they had a wife helping them through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think that makes it really hard for people who are single to like, okay, God's telling me wait and all this.
Yeah.
I wrote down this quote from Dr. What is his name? Orion Taraban.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
That guy's
want I
good.
want to I want to get your opinion on this because he
Yeah.
says we live in a culture in which sex precedes commitment. The way to get
Mhm.
to commitment and long-term relationships and engagements and marriage is kind of through sex. It's the first step of a process that can potentially end in a family. So the Bible says to not have sex till you're married. He's saying like a long-term relationship like commitment is preceded by sex. So like in your experience as a dating coach and also your personal life, like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard one. It's a very hard one because the way that like what the Bible clearly talks about is, you want to first, date to get married, but a lot of people, even Christians, they even date, they hook up and then they get married, right? But
Hmm.
I do think that that guy, that doctor dude, I don't think he actually believes in God. So I think
Right.
his views are more on the world's views, right?
Yeah.
So I think you have to have like a hybrid on like a little bit of that where, just you gotta pick someone who also has, she's a God-fearing woman a little bit, right? You gotta have some fear in like, what you're doing. Like you gotta like any action that you have, you know that someone's looking at you, God's looking at you. So like you kind of feel guilty in that type of way, right? So I do think you gotta have someone that kind of is like that, or at least someone that wants to have a family, wants to settle down, wants to have kids, wants to be a wife. She wants to be a wife. She's not selfish. She's not like a freaking crazy narc, influencer girl that just, wants to get validation from the world. I think you gotta that's one of the things that you gotta really weed out as far as like those type of women who
Hmm.
might say that they're Christian or who are not Christian, right? Just those women that are kind of like that. And like, what has their history been like? Have they been just maybe have they been in a couple relationships throughout their life, like long term, but like maybe they chose the wrong person? Or have they just kind of been single the whole time? It's kind of, red flag for women to just be single, like kind of like their whole adult life a little bit, right? Because that means to me that like they're just hooking up with a bunch of dudes, right? And it's not,
Unless they're single and not hooking up, but yeah.
yeah, unless they're not, yeah, yeah, unless, right? But
Hmm.
it's just, but you'll know that, right? You'll know that, right?
Right.
But it's a hard one, man, because I'm not to say I'm a perfect person, like I sin, I made mistakes. How I met Delara, we didn't go completely 100% the Christian way. We went,
Right.
first we dated and, then we fell in love and then we got into a relationship. We got married later down the road. But yeah, I mean, to me, the red pill is very, I look at it like this. I look at it like you can take the good from everything and add the good into your arsenal, but
Yeah.
then there's always going to be bad with something, right?
Hmm.
So like that's kind of like the philosophy from like martial arts, from jiu-jitsu, is like I always take the best of like techniques or concepts from people. Like this guy has this really good armbar. Dude, he finishes everybody with this armbar. I want to learn how he gets there.
Yeah.
And then take that and I watch it, I train, study it, and then I add it into my arsenal. And it's kind of the same thing with like that concept is universal with like everything, kind of like the red pill. Like I took some things that were good, like, just you know, having the balls to just go and approach women, having the balls to do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I see a lot of Christian men don't have, right? Like we're talking about why people think Christianity is weak. Couple reasons, man. I mean, number one is because kind of like what you said, they don't take care of their body. Back
Hmm.
in the day, there wasn't no workout or a gym or
Yeah.
anything like that, where all these like prophets or just people that were talking to God in the Bible had. It was just life, right? But now it's you have to adapt, and you can control that, and we're able to do that. And you should as a man. And if you see some dude that's like super overweight, has like a gut, and he's just like talking about God, you're not gonna really truly respect him. And like, some guys, another thing too, well, before that, let me just get back into the red pill. So when I started to kind of like go into that route too,
Hmm.
I first thought that I was just gonna meet this girl and get married. That was like my whole thing, right? And I did meet this girl like 2012, and I thought we were gonna get married. I met her. It was just like luck how I met her, right?
Hmm.
And she used to go to my high school, and we dated for like a year and some change. And my idea was, oh, I'm gonna move. This is when I moved from San Antonio to Temp Springs, Maryland, right before I moved to California. So I was there for 3 months in Kemp Springs, Maryland. And this is when, as I was about to leave, I'm like, hey, I know I'm going to leave, but we're still going to be together. And, after a couple months, you're going to come up there with me. We're going to live together and we're going to get married later down the road. That's kind of
Yeah.
like my thought process.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what like the type of woman I was actually dating, right? I had no idea. She was a little bit older, way, way more mature than me. I was just a freaking little kid, man. So 3 months in there, I get a text message one night. This dude messages me. He sends a picture of her and him, and he's holding her. And he says, "You're not the only one she loves." And I was like, "What?"
Dude.
Like, he's holding her
Heartbreak
in a
City.
vineyard. And I'm like, what the heck? His name was Jimmy, and the guy was like 40 years old, man. I was like in my 20s or something like that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
dude, the guy was like 20 years older than me, and like that happened. So to me,
How old was
what I
she?
thought was like, oh, everything was fine and dandy, roses and rainbows, clouds. Dude, it just got into that. And then that's kind of where I got a little bitter. And I think that's how guys get into the red pills. They become bitter, or they want to like self-improvement. There's not much self-improvement on like real practical ways. So they go to the internet, right, for
Hmm.
answers. And that's kind of how I got bitter. I was like, I don't want to ever feel this way, because that's when my heart was just like, I gave someone my heart and she just threw it in the trash, right? And
Right.
um, to me, I was sad, I was devastated, and I was like a little depressed, whatever, but I kept going. But that turned out to be the best thing ever, because then I learned all the skills along the way, right? I started to, then 3 months later, that's when I moved to San Diego. When I got to San Diego, everywhere you go, there's like beautiful women, right? Everywhere you go. But like I struggled with like talking to them, approaching them, doing all that. So I went in that route of like, okay, I'm gonna, who are the best guys that are teaching this? And then I went after those guys, and like I
Hmm.
learned from them. I went to the seminars, and I started picking up kind of the same concept, those things that they're teaching, and I took the best and put it into kind of my arsenal, right? And then from there, that's how I started getting like results. I started improving. I started feeling more confident. I started doing practical things. And then from there I started like, dating women and, going into that lifestyle, right? But along the way, this is what I found. I found that the more that I was having fun and just like, you know, conquest, another conquest, whatever,
Hmm.
um, I started to feel. like in the end, it was all meaningless.
Yep.
It was all pointless.
Yeah.
There was nothing depth. There was just the void I was trying to fill.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm like dating. My friends are telling me I'm a cool guy, you know. They're like, wow, he's a super cool dude, you know. I'm like getting some respect from them or whatever. All of my jujitsu guys want to hang out with me because they want me to go out with them, and I'm the one that opens and stuff, right? With like
Yeah.
conversations and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
In the beginning, it wasn't like that, but I became that guy. But deep down, I still felt like man, now I got what I wanted, but now that I got what I wanted, I realized that it's not what I thought it was going to be,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that's where I started to continue just doing what I was doing. And then that's how I met Delara. And then Delara, when I met her, she was different. She
Mhm.
was different than anybody I've ever met. And we were, in every single way. And we fell in love after 3 months.
Mhm.
And a big part of the struggle I was fighting was the red pill.
Yeah.
Because the red pill saying, you can get another one. You move on,
Yeah, dude.
keep going, keep going, right? And I'm like, I don't want to keep going. Like I really like her. I really love her.
Yeah.
I see a future with her. I see that she can be a great mom. Like I really fell in love. She's like we're having these amazing deep conversations. And then my
Mhm.
friends they're like, oh dude, you're camping, bro. Oh man, bro, let's go out to the club. Hey, let's go out. Hey, man, who cares about her? Like, let's go. Like, oh, you settled. People are getting angry at me. Like, guys who I thought were like my close friends
You're like,
are
what?
getting mad.
What do you mean I settled? I went out, I did the hard work. This amazing girl, like she's your dream girl, attractive. Like they just wanted you to come out because they needed
Yeah,
someone.
yeah, exactly. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I took it personal in the beginning because I was like, I thought you guys wanted me to be happy, and now that
Yeah.
I found like real happiness, you
Yeah.
guys are just talking shit and telling me I settled. I'm like, fuck you, kind of like that mindset.
Yeah.
I'm like angry, but
Yeah.
then later, kind of like what you said, it wasn't about me. It was more about them.
Yeah.
Oh, the fun is gonna be gone, right?
Hmm.
But sometimes you find out kind of like your friends a little bit there too, because I found out like, okay, well, that's all that we have, really? Is that all that
Yeah.
we have?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Dude,
from
I've been
there,
down I've been down that
yeah,
exact same route. I mean, you know,
yeah,
we've talked a lot about my relationships, but like
yeah,
I think that there's definitely some relationships that I probably would have stayed in. Well, I would have stayed in longer, but in that time I was so caught
yeah,
up in the red pill psychology. I
yes,
at least would have given them a longer time to like see things out. But I was just listening to this like, oh, if she's had this in the past, then blah blah blah, and it's like
yeah,
it gets toxic. But the reason
yeah,
it's so catchy for some guys is because part of what they teach is still beneficial in a way. Like some things about attraction, some things about being manly and like holding your ground, or kind of just being like
yeah.
committed to whatever it is you're doing. Like there's certain things about it, and
Being a
also
better
like
leader, yeah,
yeah, being a leader and kind of like calling the shots, and also you do learn a little bit about like female psychology, which I think is like there's some truth to
yeah,
that, like what women
yeah,
find attractive and what they don't and things like that. But it's too far. It just goes too far. You get the Andrew
yeah,
Tates and stuff, and it's just like
yeah,
it's kind of crazy. So,
hmm,
but yeah, man, I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's a crazy story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Last thing I want to just say is once I got into that, and then I started having my own, like, my friends were like, "Oh, what the heck?" I'm dating her.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with like, should I keep going or not, right? And then
Mhm.
this is why I left the red pill. I left the red pill because all the guys that like inspired me, that like I took some things from them.
They never got married.
I started seeing their life, like
Hmm.
their actual life. Like I started actually seeing it from a different way, like not just like, oh, like, this guy here is super cool, da da da, but like, hold on now. what's his life? I started seeing a different way,
Yeah.
right? And then I started seeing like these people, I'm not going to mention their names, but they were like late 40s into their 50s. Now they're like in their 50s and they're still
Hmm.
going out. They're
Yeah.
still approaching women. They're still going to the clubs. They're still, you listen to them in a podcast. I'm still trying to find my dream girl. And it's just
Like,
like
dude.
they have the mindset of the grass is greener the whole time. So to me, I was like, I don't want to be like those guys. I want
Right.
to. That's where I'm not going to conform to what I'm going to conform to what I believe in and what I feel is right. And that's where I made that decision to want to continue to pursue my relationship with Delara. And then I just stopped on everything, on all the fronts of like talking to women, approaching, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And
So
uh, that's how it
that's
happened.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes me think of like a question. So
Yeah.
that being said, like what would
Mhm.
you tell guys? Because everyone's like, okay, what should guys be? Like what should your values be in finding a woman? Like you found someone who's awesome and you
Yeah.
still kind of had this like, ooh, do I see if I can go further? Do I not? Like what are your things? Like what is your opinion on like how attractive should they be and like what values need to match and when do you know to like this is the one to settle down on? Because everyone's like, oh, you should feel a spark, but that's kind of like you don't always feel a spark, you know? It's not that's like not something that I think is a good determination of like what a good relationship is. So what in a small summary, like what would you say now that you've had that experience that guys should be looking for?
Yeah. So every guy's different. Every guy looks different, different stages of their life. And the first thing you have to be, I mean, if this is going to be the woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, there has to be somewhat of like attraction, right? William
Hmm.
Shakespeare says a really good quote. He says, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Hmm.
So as long as you think that she's pretty and like, she's beautiful to you, then that's all that really matters. A lot of times people, I think, get fixated on like trying to impress other people, which I
Hmm.
understand because you want like that respect as a man. But if you think that she's pretty, that's all that matters, man. And because some guys are gonna be like not very good looking dudes or don't have like good game. They don't really take care of themselves. They're just average guys, but they can find a nice girl and that's like
Hmm.
cute. She doesn't have to be super hot or anything like that, or someone from like porn or something like that that they fantasize on, right? And
Right.
that could be their wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone that they're attracted to. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Someone that you're at least, she's pretty to your eyes, right? So
Yeah.
that's everyone is different. That's why like that verse or that quote is really good. But that's just one of the many things because there's a lot of
Right.
pretty girls, right?
Yeah.
After that, the big thing is the chemistry that you have with her. She should eventually be your best friend later down the road, or at least, top three best friends that you have from your other friends that are men. And I think maybe that's a controversial thing that a lot of guys will say, like, oh, she shouldn't be your best friend or this or that. I do think that that's your life partner, that's your wife. So she should be someone that you have deep conversations with because that's this person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. What is it
Yeah.
just for her to be pretty and then you have no conversation with her? Like, well, then
Right.
what? What the heck, right?
Right.
So, so that should be like a must. And then another one is like the values of like, what do you value in your life? What are the things that
Hmm.
you value in your life? Like for me, I always value just like kind of more like old school tradition, like family. I wanted
Hmm.
to have a family. I wanted to have, kids. I wanted to have a good wife. I wanted to have a good wife that was in her feminine and I was in my masculine, someone that I can lead. And, she has, of course, opinions and, I'm willing to hear her out and stuff. But in the end, like, this is what I believe we should do. And she's willing to, kind of like, the whole biblical aspect of it. God, the husband, the wife, the kids, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like in
Yeah.
that way. And for the people who are like Christian, of course, you should have a woman who's Christian.
Hmm.
And to me, another big one was I didn't want her to like have a crazy amount of like guys that she was with, or like had guy friends or things like that. Because I know how
Hmm.
guys operate. If we
Yeah.
see a pretty girl and we're trying to be friends, there's not really,
Yeah.
don't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
You know what you're trying to do. So that was a big thing too, and like also like not a girl that wants to go out and party all the time. I would date these
Hmm.
women that would just always want to go out and party and go to the clubs or go to raves or
Yeah.
or like all those type of things, right? So to me, those were the things that I was looking for. I think that's what guys should look for, and every guy's different, but those are like the things that I do believe that you'll find a good woman like that.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No,
What-
I would probably agree with you. Um,
yeah.
it's, I remember when I was younger, I was like, I really want to find a girl, like a girl that I'm super attracted to, which I still do, like there's got to be a certain level of attraction. But I've also had experiences where initially I wasn't too attracted to someone, but then like we hung out and the personality and their
Oh yeah,
humor is just like could bump them up a huge amount when it comes to attractiveness. So along
yeah,
with all those other things.
yeah, yeah. Like think of it like on the attraction side though too, right? Like my daughter, I'll give you an example. My daughter, she's 2 years old, right? And like I don't want to think about it, but eventually she's gonna get married one day, right? And the husband who she chooses, I want that husband to love her, to, think in his mind she's beautiful, right?
Right.
Not for him to be like, she's right? If
Hmm.
that's not the guy for her,
Right. Right.
I don't want her just to like Andrew Tate, just to provide for her and that's it. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, dude. I want the guy to love her, to be there for her, to, see her as beautiful, and she's the only one, and he's gonna be faithful and gonna be a good protector. He's gonna provide. He's gonna be that guy, and he
Hmm.
believes in God, of course, right? So, like, if you pick a girl that you're not attracted to, and deep down you're guilty on that, you're not just doing yourself a disservice, you're doing the girl a disservice.
100%. Yeah.
When another guy can really, what's that quote? It's like another man's trash is another man's gold or something like that.
One man's trash, another man's treasure, or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like yeah, man, that's your treasure. That's the, kind of like in the Bible, it's like love your, love your wives like Jesus loved the church.
Hmm.
Like you want to love her like that, but I mean, eventually you guys are gonna get old and stuff, but at least for the majority of your life, there has to be a little of that attraction. Because guys come to me and they're like, dude, I'm not attracted to my wife. I feel guilty and this, and
Ugh,
there's something, so that's like.
you're
I'm like, dude,
stuck,
like,
dude.
what am I supposed to say to that?
Right.
Oh, leave her, bro. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
well, someone who likes to work out too, right? If you're a person that likes to take care of himself and like works out, you should also find someone that has those like things outside of, like hobbies, like what wants to work
Yeah.
out and stuff. Stay active because sometimes guys get in relationships with girls and then those girls let themselves completely go. And then they're like super mad. They're like, whoa, what the heck? It's like find
Yeah.
someone that also likes to take care of herself. Like for me, I do jujitsu, I work out. Delara doesn't do jujitsu, but she likes to work out. She likes to take care of herself, and
Hmm.
that's another thing that we have in commonality. We meal prep, we eat healthy, we'll have cheat meals and stuff, but it's not like, she's letting herself go. I'm letting myself go. And it's the same thing. That's another thing about Christianity, right? I want to get one more topic about Christianity,
Yeah.
about like weak, like why people think Christianity is weak.
Hmm.
Guys let themselves go once that they
Hmm.
get the girl. I do think that. I do think once you get the girl, they're like, well, I don't got to do anything anymore. I have her. I don't have to work out. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to continue to chase my purpose or add other, continue to evolve. And this becomes very unattractive, right? Because the moment that, the woman saw you as like that guy who's like ambitious, go-getter, continuing to improve, and then all of a sudden you get in a relationship, you start to lose that. And she's like, who is this guy that I married? A lot of them maybe start to kind of lose respect or, lose attraction for the guy, right? So you want to continue to level up as a man, right?
Yeah.
But why do you think, I have a question for you. Why do you think that a lot of people think that like overall, like Christianity is weak?
Um, I think it honestly kind of goes back to like what I was saying a little bit earlier is that like when you look at the last few decades of the church and you look at men in the church, like there's not a lot of men that you see that look manly in terms of what society thinks is manly. I think if you like were to actually like dive deep into those guys' lives and see how committed they are to their wives and like how they've, you know, stuck through difficult things and like provided for their family and had faith and, you know, were kind of like a rock for their family, I think that maybe people would change their mind a little bit. But we live in such a materialistic surface level society that I think people just judge Christians as like, well, you know, that guy's not strong and he's like doesn't really have like an amazing job, but they don't look at like the values of things that actually matter, you know, like are you faithful to your wife? Are you committed to your family? Are you going to be the person that's like standing there for them emotionally and, you know, strong? So I think people don't see that. Um, but I also think sometimes too, like Christians are a little too like timid or meek, you know? Like the Bible does say like the meek will inherit the kingdom of heaven or the meek will inherit the earth. But like Jordan Peterson did a good job of like explaining what meek actually means. And he said like meek is someone who has a sword and isn't afraid to use it, but doesn't use it like
Mm,
unless they have to, basically.
mm.
You know, like they
Love
keep
it.
their sword sheathed, but when they need to,
Yeah.
they will. So it's like basically being someone who's like calm, you know, it's like the guy with the big stick, you know,
As
like
a
he's
control.
yeah, under control, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think it's kind of funny though, because like you know, one thing I was thinking is like again, like Christian men, you know, like sometimes I think they're trying to do right, and like the Bible talks so much about laws and like obeying the law and being pure,
Oh
and
yeah.
but like I just heard something on Instagram. It was saying like a recent study shows that like men who break minor traffic laws are considered to be better partners long term because they're like, you know, they're not fearful. They make decisions. They're willing to kind of go after what they want. And I think like
Yeah.
maybe there's some truth to that. You know, like maybe you see these
Yeah.
Christian men and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do this because like I'm trying to be perfect and all that. And I think about my past as a
Mm,
younger Christian, and I was afraid to do anything. And like when has fear ever been an attractive trait in a man?
mm.
Probably not very often, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. No, that's
secular
true.
culture views
Yeah.
Christianity as weak, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Those are great points that you made. Another kind of just like similar, I guess the question as well that I was trying to also ask was like a lot of people that are Muslims, they anytime that you like say bad stuff about like Muhammad or something like that, or like Islam, they get like crazy angry and they're like, what the like they're like want to kill you type of thing, right?
Hmm.
But when it comes to like Christianity, when people are like talking bad about Christianity, this is where I believe that men need to be stronger in their faith and defend, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
Christianity because that is something that I don't see a lot of guys are doing,
Yeah.
right? And this is where sometimes they'll be like, oh, like you're accepting like gays and lesbians and all these
Mm.
people into your church, like you guys are weak, you know, da, da, da. Like over here, we're in this religion, we'll kill them, you know, we'll kill them, we'll hang them, we'll burn them, whatever. But you know, I used to back in the day, I used to think like, well, you know, gay people are bad, they're wrong, type of thing, all this. But the more I started studying what Jesus talks about, I remember in that there's like a story on like the you know, they bring the woman that like committed like prostitution or something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, hey, teacher, like the Jewish people, the Pharisees are trying to, you know, they're trying to trap Jesus, and they're like, "Did she committed a sin? We're supposed to stone her. What should
Hmm.
we do with her?" They asked Jesus, and Jesus is like, "What does he say?"
He says, I think he says, he who's without sin, throw the first stone. Something like that.
Yes, yes, exactly. He who.
And they all drop their stones and walk
and they
away.
all drop their stone, right? So
Yeah.
that's the big thing there. It's like, yeah, we can say all these gay people are wrong, but in reality, it's like we're committing a different sin in our own different way. We all make sins, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
whether these people are doing that, I'm doing this over here, you're doing this over here, right?
Hmm.
So how can we be judgmental? I think that's another thing where people are like, yeah, Christianity, I don't like that because they're virtue signaling. That's a big one there, right? I'm
Hmm.
like, how come you don't, go to church or you follow Christianity? Oh, because those people are virtue signaling. And I'm like, virtue signaling? What do you mean? And then, he's like, well, they think that they're better than everyone and they're like doing actually bad things and they're just pointing the finger at other people, you know?
Yeah.
So this is where, this is the reason why Jesus came is to die for our sins because we're all sinless. We all make sins and he came here sinless. He's perfect.
Yeah.
And he died for our sins to we can if we believe in him, we have eternal life. So I used to think, oh, these gay people, they're not going to have eternal life because according to, what it says in the Bible and certain things like Leviticus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
But now I'm thinking if they have Jesus in their heart, sometimes um they should probably, if they really have it, some people will actually go in being, straight. That's a crazy conversation there, right?
That is,
But
yeah, yeah. That's a super hard thing to
yeah,
talk about.
some I found that like were gay or whatever, and then they turned to Jesus. They felt like a weight like
Hmm.
shifted, and then from there they became straight, and then they married someone. But some continue to
Struggle with
follow
it.
God, and they're still like in that realm. I still
Yeah.
think if they have Jesus in their heart, they're still going to go to heaven because of
Yeah.
that.
So
Right?
you're touching on like a really good topic, and I'm going
Yeah.
to challenge you a little bit in your thoughts, and I'm just because I'm curious
Yeah.
to know what you think.
Yeah.
But I think that you talk about those people who say, "Oh, you're virtue signaling as a Christian," and I think there's maybe a little bit to that. So like I think for a lot of people, they come into Christianity and they look at the Bible and they see all these verses, and some of them are when you read them, it's kind of like this seems a little contradictory because you see one verse that says, you're saved by faith through grace alone and not by your works. But then you go into another verse, where
Mm.
Jesus is saying like, I'm gonna come and when I return, I'm gonna be like a bride, like a groom in the middle of the night for his bridegrooms, and you better have oil in the lamp, which is symbolizing like you better have fruit and like works in your life because if I come back and there's no evidence that you knew me, like no works, then I'm gonna say like depart from me, I never knew you. So
Mm.
then it's like, okay, how much of it is faith and how much of it is works? And then people start saying like, well, if you're following God, then naturally you should have this fruit come out of your life. Like your heart will be changed. But then you have people who are, gay and they're like, I've been following God and I still have these desires. And so it's like, I think that people know, like, yeah, I know that like maybe I do believe in God and I know that I'm fallen in a lot of ways and I have
Mm.
these really strong desires to keep doing that. And I just don't want to be phony. Like
Mm.
maybe that's what they're thinking. It's like I've tried. It's interesting. Like a couple
Mm.
weeks ago, I because recently I've kind of like with the Charlie Kirk stuff, and I've kind of like felt this like strong pull, like what everyone was kind of feeling around the world, like maybe
Yeah.
to re look at my Christianity and reconsider, like not reconsider it, but like kind of come back a little bit and.
Yeah.
But then I also fell back into like this other way that I used to behave where I'm like examining every single thing I do and feeling like, man, if I mess up on this, then I'm not really a true Christian. It's like, and it almost became overwhelming and depressing a little bit. I was like kind of like stuck a little bit. I mean, we've had some conversations.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And and then so I was like, I wonder how many people have felt this. So I actually did like a Google search, and
Mm.
like it was like, hey,
Wow.
like feeling depressed as I became a new Christian, and I was coming across all these stories that were so similar to me that I never knew. Like people were like, yeah, I became a Christian in the very beginning. It was really cool, but then the more I read the Bible, and I felt like, man, I have to do this. I have to give up this. I can't do this, and and all of a sudden I just started to feel depressed. And then I was like up late at night crying because I was thinking about my family that aren't saved and they're going to hell and I couldn't sleep. And then I prayed God, like, God, please show me a sign like this. And nothing happened. And then after 6 months or however long, they were just like, I had to let it go because it was stressing me out. And then I just felt all this relief. So it's like, what would you say to that person? Because that person genuinely was reading the Bible and they were seeing like, the Bible says like this, and I'm trying, but it's like I feel like I'm contradicting it, you know? I think the thing that's so hard about the Bible is like you're supposed to have faith, but you're also supposed to be good. And it's like, where is there a line? Because it's not a black and white thing. I heard one more thing I'll say.
Yeah.
I heard Alex Hormozy talking about religion, and
Mm.
he became a Christian, you know, when he was young.
Apologetics, yeah. He was like
Yeah,
into
and he studied it
apologetics.
for like
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
And his argument was
Yeah.
like, okay, the thing about Christianity is like um all the other religions tell you like you have to be good to be saved. So then you ask, okay, well, how much is good? Like if I opened one more door, would that put me over the 50%
Yeah.
mark? You know, he makes that argument. And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
then he
Yeah.
said Christianity is like it's different because it say you have faith. But then how much faith is enough? And then you kind of fall into the same line, you know. And I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying like these are things that I think about and they're kind of struggles, you know, because it does seem sometimes like the Bible's a little contradictory. The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but then you go into like another Bible verse that says uh like First John 4:18 says whoever fears has not been perfected in love, and perfect fear drives out all love, or perfect love drives out all fear.
What
So
was the
that
first one? What was the first quote that you had?
the first one is
First verse, I mean. Where is it from?
it's I could find it, but it basically
The
says
fear, the beginning of which
the
one?
fear of the Lord, the fear of the Lord is the
Is that
beginning
one
of wisdom.
Proverbs?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All
Let me
right.
look.
Yeah, yeah. Continue, because I want to. I have like my mind is thinking right now. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
So that's Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But then in First John 4:18 it says basically you know, there is no fear inside love. Perfect love drives out all fear. And then it says, whoever fears has not been perfected in love. But then you go to Proverbs 31:30, and it says, a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So do we fear? Do we not fear? Or is it a balance? It's probably a balance,
it's a balance. Yeah, yeah.
you
It's
know?
a balance. But the Old Testament. What is the Old Testament? Back in the day when you didn't have Jesus as like your Lord and Savior, as he died for our sins, right? You're like, you know what I mean? So now we have Jesus. He came here. And that's the reason why he came, dude. You know, is because we're never perfect. If you look at the Old Testament and even the New Testament, but you're looking at the Old Testament, what is the theme, the common theme? The common theme is the whole time guys are making mistakes. Guys
Hmm.
are, going out of their way and,
Yeah.
leaving God kind
Isaiah
of for
is
a
full
little
of
bit,
that.
and then they come back, and then God gives them mercy, and they come back, and it's just a continuation of God is just like, man, these guys are literally, I'm getting tired of these dudes doing the same thing over and over again. He even mentions like, I'm so tired of them that I'm gonna shorten their lifespan. Before people used to live like 400 years, 500
Yeah.
years. And he's
Yeah.
like, I can't take watching these guys anymore. I'm gonna do it to at least 120 or something like that, right? There's
Yeah.
like a verse because we're rotten, dirty sinners, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the truth. So yeah, should we fear him? Yeah, we should fear him because that is something, but at the same time, in the New Testament, it goes into because everything is a covenant, right? Like how God came to Abraham and then he said, I'm going to make you disciples of all nations. And that was his promise to him and Isaac and Jacob and then Moses. And then from there, Moses to Joshua. And the whole time he's promising them this thing that he's going to do that. And then all that whole line eventually goes into Jesus, right?
Right.
But the whole time, all of these guys are making like terrible mistakes. Sometimes they don't
Massive
believe.
mistakes.
Sometimes they're
Yeah.
just like they're fearful, they're doubtful. This is a common theme, dude,
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it is common for us to have a doubt. for us to have a little bit of that fear, for us to have emotion. I mean, doesn't God show that he does have some emotions from the Old Testament to, you know what I mean? How he is. He's like,
Hmm.
he gets angry with people. He shows mercy. He
Hmm.
shows compassion. He's, he's jealous that
Yeah.
like that they're worshiping pagan gods and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I do
Yeah, I mean,
believe that, yeah,
Isaiah is
yeah,
just basically full of that, where all the different cities that he's talking about, like you guys have turned from me, and then there's wars,
yeah.
and a lot of them die, but then there's still a few who say, "I'm going to turn back," and God has mercy on them. It's just like story after story, city after city of that happening. So yes, I think you're right. But like
Yeah.
so I guess the point I'm trying to make is like I think that's why it's just hard for people because people like black and white, like it's hard to be like, okay,
But people that are
it's
logical,
stress.
like Alex Hermosi, right? They're very logical guys.
Hmm.
I think that can also be,
A
that's the
downfall.
thing. What I see with a lot of guys is that are very smart, logical, analytical guys is they think that God needs to be 100% logic like that. Where
Right.
it's like we have tiny little brains compared to like what God is, you know what I mean? So we
Yeah.
can't really use so much 100% logic with that because if we do, we're going to fail to we're gonna just always be like, well, it doesn't make sense type of thing. Like, oh, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it, and
Well,
maybe you never know. Alex Ramosi might have been like, you know what, kind of like similar to you. I'm not really getting anywhere type of thing, or maybe he was like lukewarm, and then he's like, you know what, I want to fucking get rich, and
yeah.
that's what I want to do. And God talks about this. He says that if you put money, like we're either you have him or you're going to have different gods that you're going to worship. And money is a clear one that a lot of people worship. I'm not saying Alex and is worshiping money as his God, but
Right.
I don't know his journey, but I think to the people that are scared, they need to have someone that they can have like a good conversation with that can like help them out with that because I think there's a lot of people that don't have conversations. Like for me, I never had anyone that can really, I never had my dad or my mom or friends or anybody in like, teachers and stuff that showed me God, right? I had to kind of go out and seek him myself,
Hmm.
so it's hard, man. That's a hard one,
It is
but
hard, and I think it's hard because people like systems to make decisions.
yes,
You know that like people
yeah.
want to know like okay, because it adds a lot more stress to your life when every decision is like, ooh, I don't know, this isn't really clear. What do I do here? It's like we just want to like go and get things done. That's like what men want to do. They just want to be decisive, directive, and just go for it. But I think sometimes Christianity is like it's a little bit um situational.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, in this situation, maybe this is right, but maybe sometimes it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. To finish what we're talking about in this topic here, I want to just bring up one thing really quick. It's
Hmm.
where is it at? Let me see. Oh, Matthew 28:19. So I'm gonna bring up Matthew 28:19. Do you know which one this one is or no?
No, not like memorized.
Okay, hold
Let me
on a
see.
sec. I have it. I kind of have it memorized, but I want to go to that one, right? So this was right when Jesus died, right? This is where he died and he got resurrected after 3 days, and then he came back to his disciples and he tells them to all go meet with him at Mount Galilee. Okay,
Hmm.
this was right before, like this was after everyone sees him after he died, right? And from there, he's like feeding people, right? There's like eyewitnesses. And then he tells everyone to go to a mountain because he's going to say one last thing before he ascends to the Father,
Hmm.
right? Notice what it says here. It says, so this is the last thing he says before he goes up to heaven, right?
Hmm.
He says, Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Wait, hold on a second. My bad. Just let me rewind this a little bit. Because look, this is the kind of like what you're saying. The point I'm trying to make is this. Even after God showed himself through Jesus, he
Hmm.
became, like in human flesh, Jesus was there and appeared, and then he's showing all these miracles, he's doing all these things, he's telling everybody what he's gonna do, and then what's gonna happen, and then he ends up dying, and then he you know he gets resurrected after 3 days, and then he comes back, right? He comes back,
Hmm.
and they're like, "What the heck? You died? Like you're here?" And he's like feeding people. It says right here. Then the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some of them still doubted,
Hmm.
right? Even after all that happened, some people are like, it's right in front of your face and you're still doubting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's a crazy thing. And then this is where he says, Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Right? And then he like says, teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. But that, like, the point that I'm trying to make there is that even if, when all that stuff happened, some people still doubted, right?
Yeah.
Some people still, and that's kind of a common theme for us humans. Is like we're still very doubtful. We still, I don't know, like, we want to
Yeah.
see more things to happen, right? But it's like
Hmm.
everyone saw what the heck happened to them. So I do think there is a little bit of that as humans, that doubt, but the love from what it's saying, it's like you have love that you know that Jesus died for our sins, so therefore you can kind of be in that way of like being comforted, like, okay, like I know
Yeah.
where I'm going. I know where I'm going. If I die, I know where I'm going. If there's a war and I'm gonna battle someone, and shit happens, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I know where I'm going. And yeah, am I gonna sin along the way because I'm not perfect? Yeah, and I'll ask for him for forgiveness. But I'm gonna keep
Hmm.
going. Right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I think. And another one that a lot of people don't get, a lot of people like in other religions are like, oh, you never talk about Trinity. The Trinity's not in the Bible, da 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 da. Right? Notice what he said right before he leaves. He says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big one there, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say to the people that are in doubt, or I
Hmm.
think it's a normal thing, but that's the beauty of Jesus. That's the beauty of Christianity. We have eternal life. We have a gift.
Hmm.
No other religion has that, man. It's
Yeah.
all, and then if you look at the other religions of what it's actually saying, you start to realize, like, dude, like, and we could talk about that later. It's like, dude, doesn't make any freaking sense.
Right.
Like, you know. But let's get to the next subject, man. So, the next subject uh, is Jesus God, right? Where does he say this in the Bible? So, for you, what are your thoughts here?
Um, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of places where he says it in the Bible. I mean, John 10:30, he says the Father and I are one, you know, talking about God. Um, but I think like the overall the general question is Jesus God. I think like you kind of first have to say, well, a lot of people point to the Bible. It's like, okay, this is all the times that he said he was the Bible, or he said he was God in the Bible. But I think like you kind of first have to ask like, well, do you believe the Bible? You know? And I think like there's a lot of evidence that would probably say that the Bible is real. I mean, and that the historical events of Jesus are real. There's like a ton of like literal documentation of the events of Jesus happening and all these eyewitnesses happening. Our whole calendar years go based off of the death of Jesus, BC before Christ, AD after Domini or Anno Domini. I forget what that is. But so, I mean, like, that obviously a significant event happened if we decided to start our calendar years, like base them around that event, and then, there's been a lot of stuff lately where it's showing like, hey, we're seeing evidence of like where the Red Sea was divided and you have like these chariot wheels on the bottom of the ocean floor and like this sand that's been turned into glass where the pillar of fire came down and there's like still this like melted sand there.
For the
you
people
know?
that don't know
So
what that means, what does that mean?
what do you mean? So like in the story of when God parted the Red Sea so that the people could escape through it, he also sent down, right, a big fire, a big pillar of fire that like
Mhm.
blocks the other people from following him in. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and so that fire like would have melted the sand, right? Because sand
Mhm.
at some temperature turns into like glass. Basically, it melts and turns into glass. And so
Yeah.
I don't like I haven't been there and seen it, but apparently there is a big section on the beach there where the sand is like still melted and it's glass and it's like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of evidence for that. There's evidence of like seashells being up on the top of mountains,
Mhm.
signifying that the flood actually did happen when the entire earth was covered in water. Um, there's a lot of different things that like are stories in the Bible that like supposedly there's science that backs it up. Um, so I
Yeah.
think once you make that decision, like, do I believe that the Bible is real? Do I believe that it happened? Which, that's your own journey to take. Because even
Mhm.
like the canon, like how the Bible was created is like that requires a little bit of faith to like,
Yeah.
okay, these people all got together over years and decided like this is what's going to be in the Bible. And you just have to kind of trust that that was God's divine working and he was telling the people what to say and that those words were going to be chosen correctly and that that was going to be the Bible. So that's a hard thing to it's a hard thing to trust. But once you make that decision and you think, okay, do I believe in the Bible? Then I think if you do believe in the Bible, there's so many parts where Jesus says that he's God, you know?
Mhm. 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 Yeah.
What about you, man? Like what verses do you look
Yeah.
at or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are really good what you said. I really want to kind of start it off with kind of like a question, right? Like,
Hmm.
why, like, here's the thing, we can say all these verses, but let's go into why did they crucify him? What was the reason they killed Jesus, right? Did
Yeah.
they kill Jesus because of his miracle, like his miracles that he performed, his works? He healed the blind, he healed the people that had demons inside them, and he took the demons out. He did all of these amazing things. He taught, you know, like he was a teacher. He was doing amazing works, right? Did they crucify him because of those things?
No,
Why did they
because he
crucify
he
him?
claimed to be God and they didn't think he was.
Exactly. Right. And you can't get a more of a clear verse than this here. This is one of my favorite ones, right? This is where Mark 14:61, he's performing miracles, and then the Pharisees, the Jewish leaders, they question him and they're like, no, this is already right before everything's going to happen. And they ask him, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? They asked Jesus this, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? Okay, if you're looking at what the Son of the Blessed One means, right? It's
Hmm.
a Jewish way, it's a Jewish word saying, are you saying God Yahweh, right?
Hmm.
Without saying his name. Like the Son of the Blessed One is they're referring to Yahweh. Okay. Yahweh is God. Okay. For the people that don't know, Yahweh is when Moses was talking to God in the burning bush. He's like, and he wants Moses to go and save all the people in Egypt and bring them to the Holy Land to Israel. Uh, he comes in and talks to Moses. Moses is like, "Who are you? Who are you?" And then God says, "I am who I am. I am Yahweh."
Hmm.
Right? So going into the New Testament, they're asking him this. The Jewish people are asking because they're going by the Torah, by Moses, right? So then
Hmm.
they're asking him one more time, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? And you know what Jesus says right after that?
I think he says I am who you say I am or something, right?
He says, I am. He says, I am, and then he says, and you will, and he doesn't just say I am, right? He doesn't just say that. He doesn't just say that he's the Son. He says, I am, said Jesus, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. Okay. And then after he said that, they're like, who does he think he is? Like, why do we need any more witnesses? Let's kill him.
Yeah.
And that's where they like rip off his robe. They start like, threatening him, punching him, talking crap, hurting him, and then mocking him. And they throw him in jail at night. And then the next day they feed him to Pontius Pilate.
Hmm.
Right. And then Pontius Pilate is like, who are you, man? Like, I can save you. And does Jesus say, please save me?
No.
He's like, he doubles down.
Yeah.
He doubles down. Right. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he doubles down. So
I think,
then
yeah. No, go ahead.
So then after that, they whip him, right? He throws him to the people that they just whip him, and they're just like they put like thorns on him, mocking him, spitting on him, hurting him. They're like whipping him, like the flesh is coming out. There's like bone and stuff like that. It's really sad. And then that's where they bring him back, and then he's like, I don't need to kill this guy. And then the Jewish people are like, kill him, right? So they're not killing him because of the works of what he was doing. They killed him because of blasphemy, according to them, saying that he is God, right?
Hmm.
That's huge, man.
Hmm.
And the whole time he's doing that the whole time, right? So this is a crazy one, right? Did you like this one?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
It's
a good one.
crazy,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, the
Um,
crazy thing too is like Pontius Pilate even was like, dude, I don't want to kill this guy. Like, take this murderer instead and hang him. And they're like, no, we want to hang Jesus.
yeah, yeah,
Like, cause
yeah.
he
He
was,
didn't do anything.
I think Pontius was like, dude, this guy is innocent. Like, he's like,
Yeah,
I do not
yeah,
want, he's like, I don't want this blood on my hands, basically.
yeah, yeah. But they do it, and that's the only way that back in the day the Jews couldn't crucify. They had to go through punch like the what is it, the Romans? They had to go through like the Romans to crucify him. That's why they're asking Pontius Pilate to do it. But it's crazy, man. Like when you're looking at it like that, like for now, the way that I read it and when I see all these things, I'm like, dude, it's insane. Back in the day, it was just like, oh yeah, he died for our sins, da da da.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, but now it's like when you're reading this, and he's not just talking about like this, he's bringing up different things from the past, from like the Old Testament,
Yeah.
right? The I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. That's the prophecy from Daniel. I don't know
Hmm.
exactly which one, but that's the one from Daniel. And he's talking to I am, it's going back to Exodus, right? He's showing that the whole time he was there the whole time, right? Do you have any other ones that you like for this one,
Um,
this section?
I don't really have any off the top of my head. I wrote down Philippians 2:6. What was that one?
Yeah.
Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. I mean, it's stating right there, Jesus was God. Said,
Hmm. Hmm.
though he
Yeah.
was in the form of God, he came down to earth, he humbled himself, came down as a man. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to trust the Bible, I mean, it's pretty clear right there. Jesus was God.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, we can have another episode just on this part and like I could share so much more and stuff, but there's so much it everything connects to everything. The Old Testament connects to the New Testament. When Jesus came, he was talking about what he was going to do, what was going to happen. He kept doing it and he kept talking about it and he fulfilled the prophecy. That was the new covenant, was him dying for our sins. And the big thing too is there's historical evidence outside of the Bible, right? Yeah, you can look at the Bible and be like, okay, well, can we trust the Bible? Can we trust the Old Testament, the New Testament, right? But like what about outside of the Bible?
Hmm.
There's there's other historical evidence from like the Jewish people, the Romans. There's like I don't remember the exact names, but there's so much more talking about Jesus and him dying and
Hmm.
like people believing in this Christ guy who they thought he was God. There's just outside people writing about Jesus. There's
Yeah.
historical evidence when that happened, when he was crucified. It says that there was like around like 500 people after he came back. Everybody talks about Jesus. If you're looking at every religion, they talk about this.
Hmm.
In like Buddhism, Buddha said that Jesus was like God enlightened, right?
Hmm.
Like Islam, they believe that, Jesus was this amazing person. They don't believe that he's God, but they think that he's the Messiah, that he's this wonderful person, right? Yeah, and one of the other things too was that all of his disciples that believed in Jesus, they all got murdered for believing and standing
Hmm.
up for him,
I think
right?
except
Like
for one. I think one of them. I think
one
John.
one one of them,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah, pretty
John,
much all of them.
yeah. Dude, all of them did though. I mean, most of them did, right? At least
Hmm.
11 of them did. I mean, would you, you know, get freaking murdered? Would you let someone torture you and do crazy things to you and kill you if you didn't believe,
Right.
about some, like if you were actually lying, like would you actually do that? Like, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
I can tell you I wouldn't. If I
Yeah.
knew that that wasn't real, I would be like, yo, he didn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't kill me, man.
I'm just
Don't.
kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't hang me
Yeah, I'm
upside
just kidding.
down.
I'm just kidding. Can I just keep moving on with my life? All right, I'll stop. But if
Yeah.
you believe wholeheartedly, man, you're gonna be like, kill me. I know where I'm going,
Yeah.
right? And that's just amazing thing, right? Like it's just the whole thing. So you have to seek him out. You have to read the Bible. You have to really read it, really ponder it, really digest it,
Hmm.
really ask other people for, if you don't understand, and then you're gonna see that everything connects to everything. And one thing too is like I believe that he wanted us to kind of search for him in a way to where it wasn't so easy, but in a
Hmm.
way where we have to kind of like have we have to have critical thinking on like looking it up ourselves. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Because
it kind of
like,
goes back to that verse you're talking about where he says, "Seek and knock, and you will find me." You know,
yeah,
I think that, yeah, I mean, that's sort of like what we've been talking about this whole time. There's like this struggle. It's like, well, some of this makes sense, some of it doesn't make sense. It's not black and white. It's hard to follow. But I think like the best answer to that is if you believe you are saved and you are forgiven, that takes off some of the performance fear or, performance from fear. But then that leaves a little bit of like it relieves the stress so that you can still like struggle and talk to God. And I think that's what like maybe that's what he means when he says like have a relationship with me. Like he's talking about knowing him. It's like tell me what's up. Like he already knows. So it's like tell me that you don't want to do this or tell me like I don't understand this or whatever. Like we was it Jacob who wrestled with God?
yeah,
Yeah, like he's like I'm not leaving until you bless me. Like he's like wrestling with God, and that's like I think that story's in the Bible for a reason. It's like we're supposed to wrestle a little bit with God, you know. Like
mhm,
even kids do this with their parents, like kids go through this, like, no, I don't want to do it. No. Like my coworker tells me about like his son right now, and he's just like going through this no phase. He's like, get dressed. No. Okay, fine. Let me dress you. No, I want to dress myself. Okay, fine. Here, wear this shirt. No, I don't want to wear that shirt. It's like they're like like wrestling with their parents. It's the same
yeah,
thing. I think
yeah,
I think maybe like the only mistake that you can make is like one, never believing, or two, just like never, I guess kind of the same line is like just never trying to know who God is and never believing in him. I mean, that's what they say the unforgivable sin is blasphemy of the Holy
yeah,
Spirit, which basically means
yeah,
you never confess that God is real. You never confess that you need God. That's what the unforgivable sin is. You leave your whole, at least that's what I've been told. You live your whole life,
no, that's a good way to
never,
put it. Yeah,
yeah, you live your whole life and you die never having
questioning or trying to
Well, no,
seek or
never having
thinking.
claimed, but like never having professed that Jesus is God. Like at that point, it's kind of like, dude, you've had your life, to try. And I think it's
Yeah,
okay to struggle and doubt and like kind of have a
yeah,
little bit of a, at least I hope it is, because if it's not, I'm screwed.
yeah, yeah. No, dude. I mean, yeah, I that's a good one, man.
And
Yeah,
that's the process of, they call that sanctification, is like as you mature in Christianity, you're growing and you're changing, you're learning these lessons, and over time your heart changes and you become more Christ-like.
yeah, yeah. So, one thing too, like, let's get to the next part is like the the Old Testament, right? Like, is there evidence where God talks about Jesus in the Old Testament? Or like, is there anything that you've noticed that was pretty like, wow, like this is crazy thing that happened in the Old Testament that like, let's say that you're a Jew, right? Put yourself in a Jew, right?
Hmm.
You're a Jewish guy. You got raised by Jewish people. Your whole family has these traditions, these cultures. You guys have the Torah only.
Hmm.
If you were a Jew and you actually read the Bible, would you see things that are pointing to Jesus or things that you see that are like very, very like, whoa, that like in the New Testament it connects.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't really like read the Old Testament in a long time. I mean, I'm reading like Isaiah right now, but like the Torah, I haven't read in a while. I know that you've been going through it and you probably have some great verses, but I know there is a ton of symbolism throughout a lot of the stories in the Bible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
like when was it Abraham who was supposed to sacrifice his son?
yeah.
And this is a cool story that I just recently heard, but like, Abraham's like, man, I finally have my son, and now God's asking
Mm,
me to go up on this mountain and kill him as a sacrifice. And he's like, I don't want to do this, but he's going to. He's going to do
yeah.
it. And then right before he's about to just like murder his son, I think God says like, wait, 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 look. And like he looks over in the bush and there's a lamb stuck in the
Mm.
bush.
Like a
And
ram, no? Or
it's
yeah.
like a ram, or yeah, like, but it's stuck in the bush and its head is like stuck on these like thorns. And then when you
Mm.
think about how Jesus died, he's considered the lamb, the sacrificial lamb, and he died with thorns around his head. Like from the
Dude, that's
very
crazy.
beginning, God
Dude,
was
that's
symbolizing.
crazy. That's
And,
crazy,
and he
man.
says,
Yeah.
and he says to Abraham,
Wow.
he says, use this goat instead to sacrifice. And it's just like, boom, God was already setting the stage way, way, way back in the very beginning from Genesis.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Bro, the Bible is the craziest book I've ever read in my life.
I
It's
mean,
it's the crazy. It's like so many it's like riddles and like symbolisms and like connecting the dots if you're actually reading it. It's insane, bro. No other book that I've ever read has had this much of like it's making you if you really look at it, like it makes you think and like wow, when you think and then you connect what you're saying, it's just like it's like whoa,
yeah, yeah, it's like the master book of
dude.
foreshadowing.
It shows how like cunning and just God is, like how
Right.
how he thinks, like how he wants us to think, I feel.
Yeah.
But but yeah, man, that's a really good one. I kind of want to bring up some things that I found that
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like this is crazy because I just got to Joshua now. So I
Hmm.
basically read the Torah because the Torah is the first five books for the people that don't know.
Which
And
is which books?
it's from
Jen.
Genesis
Hmm.
and then Exodus and then what's after Exodus?
Is it
Is it
Leviticus or Numbers?
Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and then Joshua,
Okay. So,
right?
okay. Genesis,
Yeah.
Exodus, Leviticus,
So
Numbers,
so
Deuteronomy.
let's look just to make sure.
Yeah.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That is the Torah.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm at Joshua now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, but the first five books. So That's kind of what I did. I was like, okay, I want to get back to that, and I want to see if it points to this, right? So one couple things that I found, and I'm not going to go into all of them because we'll
Yeah.
be here for a lot longer. But that's for another episode because I'm
Yeah.
having so much fun. But the first thing that I noticed was when he created Adam and Eve, and then Eve ate the apple, and then she gave it to Adam, and then they were like they were
Yeah.
naked, and they're like, oh shoot, like we're naked, and we're embarrassed, and then they started putting like they started covering up their bodies with like fig leaves, and then from there, it says in the Bible, then they heard God walking
Hmm.
in the like in the garden, right? So he's walking. So it's God in physical form,
Hmm.
right? If you're looking at it like that, if you're studying it, you're like, whoa. Well, wait, hold on a sec. That like, what does that mean, right? And and when I was researching, it's like the pre-incarnate Christ. It's God in in human form, in physical form. And it's saying
Right.
that he's walking. They hear his footsteps, right? So that's the first of many that it shows that God comes into the physical form. Okay. And to me, when I saw that, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy, right? But like to me, I was like, okay, like, but I didn't know. No one ever tells me this. No one talks to me about this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
look at it yourself. And then from there, we'll skip into the next part. Like, whenever that Abraham is with talking to God, he's
Hmm.
talking to God like a friend, he's having a great relationship with God. And then one day, Abraham is like, it's like like it says, like, then one day the Lord appeared to Abraham, right? So it says the Lord appeared to Abraham, God appeared to Abraham, and then Abraham sees three men, and then three men come to him, and then he bows down to these three men, and he says, "My Lord." He doesn't say "my Lord," he says, "My Lord," right?
Hmm.
And then if you're looking at the Hebrew and Aramaic, he's saying, "My God," right? Like he's saying Yahweh,
Yeah.
okay? And and then he says, if you guys are here, please let me wash your feet and come and grab some food so I can feed you guys.
Yeah.
So then the way that the Bible is talking about is saying that he's gonna wash his feet, meaning in physical form, and then he tells his one of his like maids or servants like, hey, go prepare the food, and tell his wife to. And then they're preparing the food, and then it goes into later like they're all eating the food together. Okay.
Hmm.
And then from there, this is where like Abraham, like he's married to Sarah, and Sarah, they're like a lot older, and she still hasn't conceived a child. She can't have a child. She's having like problems having a kid.
Yeah.
And then this is where God says, hey, in 1 year you're gonna have a kid. And he's gonna be, he's gonna be the one to continue the descendants, right? And
Yeah.
continue the bloodline basically, right?
Yeah.
And Sarah like kind
She
of
left.
laughs. She's like, "Pfft, like I'm
She's in
already
the
old."
tent too. She wasn't even by God. She was in the
Yeah,
tent,
she
right?
wasn't okay, yeah, she wasn't by God. She was like somewhere else, right? And she laughed. She's like, "Pfft, what? I'm old. Like, how can?" And then
Yeah.
Abraham said, how can I have that? I've tried for years and none of it's gonna work. And then God comes back and is like, why did you laugh? She's like, I
Yeah.
didn't laugh. And then
And he's like,
what
yes, you did.
Yeah, he's like, yes, you did. But notice once again, it's him in physical form because they're
Right.
together eating a meal that he's washing his feet.
Right.
And to me, I'm like, what? Like God appears in physical form? Like
Hmm.
this doesn't like what? Like I've never heard of that. No one has ever explained that to me, right? And like, what
Yeah.
is that? Like when I look at it, I was like, what is that? It's a pre-incarnate Christ. So it's
Yeah.
like he's been here the whole time in physical form if he wants to. Like the question that you should ask is because a lot of people are like, how can God become in, human form? If you're God and you can create and you created the heavens and earth and you created anything in the world and nothing
Yeah. It's
is
like you could do
possible,
anything.
how can you not pop yourself into existence?
Inside your own creation.
Yeah, what the heck? That's the real question that like people should ask themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how is that impossible, right? Like that's silly. But
Yeah.
he's been doing that the whole time, right? And then I was like, well, who are the two other men? Like that's kind of like, and then there were angels, right? Angels can also pop themselves into human form too.
Hmm.
Right. Same thing with like the fallen angels, like all the like the fallen angels that can do that. Right. It
Hmm.
goes back into saying that like when the fallen angels came down when he struck, when Jesus says, I saw Satan get hit, go down to earth like a lightning bolt, like when he was rejected from heaven, right?
Yeah.
uh, the angels became fallen angels, and they can also form themselves into human, and they started mating with the women, creating the
Hmm.
nymphalites, right?
Yeah.
And then those became like really bad, like some heroes and stuff like that or whatever, but giants,
Yeah.
um, you know, doing all these wicked things, showing sorcery, showing magic, performing all these things, making the world into more of a lustful world, the
Hmm.
evil world. And that's why he like flooded, the
Yeah.
whole world
He
with
had to wipe
Noah.
that out.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
dude, like
And you know,
that's
dude,
yeah, go ahead.
is there a story? I think there's a story too. This could be wrong. I heard this. I haven't actually found it. I don't know if I found it in the Bible, but
Yeah.
is there a story about like there used to be giant trees and like the angels had to come and cut them down so that when God flooded the earth, like there wouldn't be a way for like the Nephilim to like stay alive. Is that
Yeah.
true? Did you read that in any of the Torah?
I don't know, maybe, but I didn't see that part. But what it does say from what you're saying, it says that in Genesis, it says that whenever that the fallen angels came, and then they made they were like they turned into human, like basically like the
The
devil's
Nephilim.
angels,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, then they it says that they were there, and then after the flood too.
Oh, they were. They
Yeah,
were
it
there
says
after.
that. So it's
Dang.
like just because he wiped them out, they were still there afterwards too. That's what it says in the Bible.
Hmm.
So that's why like
Okay.
they're still.
So then
uh,
the story I read has to be wrong. Or I didn't read
hmm,
it, but the story I heard. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not
That's
sure,
crazy.
but that's
I
what
didn't
I
know that.
saw. You can look at it yourself. It's in Genesis, bro. It says that
Yeah.
right there when it says when God talks about the Nymphalites and the fallen angels. Right there,
Dang.
it's like a little small little thing there. But I
Wow.
missed that. I actually saw that from somewhere else, and I went back and I'm like, I didn't see that part. I missed it. Oh, I caught it. And then like,
Gotcha.
damn, oh wow, but bro, the whole time he's been in physical form, and then a couple more just um after that with Jacob, he wrestled with Jacob,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
He's in human form,
Hmm.
physical form. Jacob is wrestling with him, and then God like touches him, and he
Touches his
like
hip.
touches his hip, and he was walking with a limp, you know?
But it's just crazy because like that story is cool because it's like
Yeah.
he wrestled with them. It said they wrestled like all night, right? It's like I think it's like they
Uh,
wrestled for like a long time because when he's done, it's like the morning or something like that. But the thing that's so funny about that is like God didn't have to wrestle that long because at the very end, all he does is go boop, touches his hip socket, bam, pops it
yeah,
out of place. Whatever happened, you know. And then
yeah,
he had to,
yeah.
and then he walks with a limp for the rest of however long. So it's just
Mhm.
like there's something significant about that where God's like, yeah, I'll come down in human form and I'll meet you where you're at and we'll
Yeah.
work it out. You know,
Yeah.
cool
Yeah. Yeah.
story.
So, yeah, exactly. And then he does it to Joshua too. I was reading it right before this today. Like he appears to Joshua and he has like a sword and he's like, we're, and then Joshua is like asking like, hey, who are you? Are you a friend or a foe? He's in physical form. And he's like,
Hmm.
neither. I am the commander of, I'm the commander of the Lord. Or what does he say? I'm the commander of
The Lord
Yahweh.
of Heaven's armies.
Yeah, there you go. Right? And that's so cool. And he's there and he appears again. And to all the Jews now, what do you guys think about that? I
Yeah,
mean, what do you like if you think, oh, that's crazy that Jesus came and he's God, explain to me the whole time from the beginning, dude, when God was
yeah,
in here the whole time. And I looked at that too. I even searched that part. I'm like, well, what do they believe in that this that God is appearing to them right there and they're talking about it. They're saying there's some Jewish rabbis that are like, oh, it's metaphoric. Oh, it's just like a vision. Oh,
yeah,
it's like what?
yeah,
Like it's right there in your eyes. That's how much your heart is hard.
yeah, yeah. Your heart
That's
is
how.
hardened.
Yeah, dude. So, I
Yeah, I mean,
mean,
why do you think
like, look at
that?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, why do you think that like even with all the evidence that there is for Christianity, that people still don't believe or follow. Because the thing that you hear a lot of people say is like, well, even the demons believe in Jesus, but they don't follow him. So why? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think everyone is different. And I mean, if you're gonna ask me about Jewish people, they're gonna have a different belief than the Muslim people.
Yeah, but I just mean in
Um,
general,
if you have an
people in general.
atheist, just that's just how we are as human nature. We need like exact logic in our
Yeah.
visible to make it happen,
Yeah, I
right?
heard I heard someone once say that it's because for two main reasons. One, people don't trust God that if they follow him, he's actually gonna like have their back, you know? And two, because they love their sin. They don't want to give it up.
Mm,
People
that's
love
a
to
good,
sin.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard, man, yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one when you
It's
follow
hard.
Jesus. You have to let go of the world's what the world thinks
Yeah.
that it's cool, and you
Yeah.
follow the cross.
And the Bible says, if you want to gain your life, you have to lose it.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah, yeah,
hard thing to accept for a lot of
yeah,
people,
yeah, dude.
you
That's
know?
that's crazy, man. So yeah, those are some of the things that I found for reading the Old Testament, reading the Torah, and that point to Jesus. And there's so much more that we didn't even cover, but. I mean, it's crazy, man, with the way I looked at it, and like I said, no one ever told me about it. But for you, man, I have this question that's really, that's an important one, like, do you believe that all religions lead to the same thing?
No. No. And if you ask me why, like I can't even really give you an honest answer because
Dude, come on, just what do you
be,
think? What
well,
if you
well,
were
I
to
mean, I can
think?
give you an honest answer, but I can't say that I haven't studied other religions. Like I haven't, you've studied Islam way more than me.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't even really studied like Judaism or Catholicism. I kind of know the general things about them, but I just I don't see as much evidence for the other religions at all. Like I don't see anything. There's nothing massively historical about Buddhism that makes me want to follow it. I just feel like there's a reason why Christianity is so prevalent in all the ways it is throughout the world. It's like, dude, if it didn't exist, then it wouldn't have the calendar year marked after it. It wouldn't have all this stuff that we see. There wouldn't be all these historical documents. So I don't think that following those religions is gonna like I don't think that they're true. So I don't think that following them is gonna lead to anything.
Mhm.
It's my honest belief. Like
Mhm.
I don't feel like there's enough evidence to point to those religions. So therefore, I don't think that they lead to the same thing. And then obviously, like if I'm a Bible believing person, like the Bible says that Jesus is the only way.
Mm.
So
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're all going to lead to the same thing." We're all the same. We're just going to lead to all the roads lead to the same destination, right?
yeah,
That's what they say. But I say, did Buddha? Where's Buddha's body,
right,
right?
right.
Where's Prophet Muhammad's body? And where's all these people from different religions? They're
Hmm.
all buried and they're all there.
You can
What
go to the
what what about
sites,
Jesus' body? Hey, what about his body? Where's his body at?
right?
Right?
Can't find it.
Uh, you can't find it, man. Everybody says that, there's many ways to get paradise, to get to heaven, but Jesus says, I am the only way and the truth and the life,
Hmm.
right? The only way to come to the Father is through me, right?
Yeah,
And I don't believe that, man. After studying, what the Jews believe, what the Muslims believe,
yeah. You mean you
what
do believe that? You don't believe that other religions lead to him?
yeah, no, no. The only
Oh,
re the
okay.
only the yeah, did I say that?
You said I don't believe that, but it sounded like you're saying you don't believe that what Jesus said, but what you're saying is it was a continuation of what you were going to say. You don't believe that after studying that the other religions
Yeah,
point to.
yeah, I guess I don't believe in the other religions after
Right.
studying what they say, because to me, I'm curious. I want to know what other people believe, like kind of like what you said, going back into once you believe. I remember we were having this conversation and it really hit me when you told me this. It's like, dude, like in Matthew, I forget what exactly, it's like Jesus, tells his disciples, come follow me. I'll show you to be fishermen of men.
Hmm.
Right? I'll teach you to be fishermen of men. I thought that that was an amazing thing the way you told me, I'm like, damn, like now that I know that, like I've been, really reading the Bible and getting like super deep on this. Now
Hmm.
I think about the people that I love and I start to question, I'm like, does this guy believe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does this guy believe? Oh my God, he believes in this religion. Oh shit, man, this person believes in this one. Dude, they're not gonna go to heaven. And to me,
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta tell them.
Yeah.
I care about them. I love them. It's
Hmm.
like the tough love you have to have. It's like if you had like a brother or, like someone who that you really love and they're going down a bad path. They're like doing drugs. They're doing like crystal meth. They're like drinking every night. They're
Hmm.
like gambling. They're doing crazy stuff. And you see that their path is going bad. You eventually have to kind of talk to them and have that frank conversation, that hard conversation, and tell them the truth, because that's that form of tough love. Because if you don't help them out, it might lead to them killing themselves or worse, et cetera, So it's that
Hmm.
same feeling that I have, like you have that tough love that you want to say it to other people,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the way that I feel towards other people now that don't have that. I'm like, oh, let's just have a conversation. I'm not going to attack you, but
Right.
what is your objections? What do you believe in? Like, what's the reason? And then that's where I started like going into like, okay, well, what actually? There's 2 billion people that believe in Islam. What the heck do they believe in? But the
Right.
Jews, what do they believe in, right? And that's for another discussion itself. But once I found all that, it just pointed even more clear to Jesus, man. You know.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing conversation we had today.
Yeah, dude.
Uh, Dude, whenever we're talking, dude, we talk even like for even longer, dude.
I know. I know.
You
It's
know?
good conversations for sure.
But
It's a
yeah,
lot to
man, I
talk about.
really, do you want to say anything before we finish this podcast?
Um, I think like I guess if I was going to say anything, like if people
Yeah.
are questioning the Bible or like questioning their religion or first of all, like I'll be the first to admit, like I still struggle. Like you've heard me on this podcast. Like I struggle with certain things. It's like hard
Yeah.
concepts to grasp, hard ways to live. Like it's hard to be a Christian and be in the world. The Bible says it's not going to be easy to be a Christian and be in the world. But I
Yeah.
think like if you're thinking about it and you're wondering and you just have questions, like I think your story about how you just prayed and you're like, God, I want to know you. I think that's the best thing to do. It's just like start praying to God, and saying like I like I want to know you. I want to know if you're real. Like I think the best way to do it is to just try to have a relationship with God, an honest like talking with God, and that's okay, like it's okay to be like I don't like this or I struggle with this and all of
Yeah.
that because like God already knows. Like if you're gonna try to be like, no, I'm fine with that, but like deep down in your heart, you're like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Like God knows that. So I think like if that's where you're coming from, the best next thing to do is just like start talking to God about it and asking him to like to reveal himself and to change who you are. The Bible says like we love God because he first loved us. So you need to like experience his love in order to even love him back. And I think the way to do that is to just try to start like seeking him, you know? And that kind
Mhm.
of goes back to the whole thing is like fear is driven out by perfect love.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess
And
that'd be
it's,
my thing.
dude, I love that. And it made me think like, if you have objections, if you're listening to this episode, if you have questions or like objections, or you're like, I don't know if that makes sense though, but what about this part here? Comment on it. Or if you want to talk to someone else about it, talk to someone else about
Hmm.
it, and someone that is in your local city or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's true. Like if if you're still like not 100% certain, that's totally okay. But if you have main objections, you should definitely ask people or, write it down in the comments here. What's your biggest objection of why you don't
Yeah.
believe? What are some takeaways that you learned in this one? Because one thing you can do too is like the things that we're talking about, you can look for it yourself if we're telling the truth
Yeah.
or not, right? You can go into the verse and you can literally look like, okay, he said this in this verse. Let me look at it. Let me read it. Read it in a New Living Translation. That's the easiest way to understand it. And then you can
Yeah.
always go back into reading a King James version or whatever. But like if anything that we're talking about, look it up. And one last thing too is I have a men's community where we are going to start having once a month. We're going to start small, but we're going to have once a month like Bible study on this, and we're going to talk about God because that's something that I love talking. I like just like this conversation in itself. We're going to have these conversations. So if you guys want to join, I have the link down below. You guys can join my men's community. And we're going to have that as well as like other things like personal development to work on yourself to become more attractive as a man, to become a better leader, better communicator, to improve on your social dating life, and just to become a better man in general. But I'm really excited because I want to add, once a month for now, these
Yeah, dude.
live calls like this.
Yeah. That's super cool, man. I'm stoked that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, other than that, it's
Yeah.
always a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate you coming in. We're gonna have another episode later down the road. And
Heck
other
yeah,
than
dude.
that, make sure that if you guys like this video, share it with a friend, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll be posting more videos like this. Other than that, I'll see you guys later. God bless.